Hi, Filmatics. Thanks for tuning in and coming back for part 2 with Jude, Gerard, Prest. He has directed and produced and overseen hundreds of hours of broadcast. He's a showrunner, executive producer, director, and writer for Full Throttle Media. He does sketch, acting, and voiceovers. And his original comedy screenplay, Harry's File, has been awarded multiple winning awards and in particular, Grand Jury Prize for Best Screenplay at the Film Invasion Los Angeles International Film Festival. So let's check out some of the shows that he's done. He's done stuff for ABC, CBS, UPN, Fox, PBS, Discovery, National Geographic, Sony Pictures, Century Fox, OMG, and Animal Planet, and much, much more. So let's welcome back Gerard, Jude, Prest. Thank you.
Prest, yeah, no worries. Hey, good to be here. This was it's a fun interview. So I have sort of two entities that I work with. Oh, actually three, because I am a for hire producer director. So if a company needs a showrunner, I'll do that, which I've done hundreds and hundreds of hours of all over the world. I think I've overseen projects in 6 continents and around 90 countries now, all but 2 U.S. states, I think. And then for about almost 8 years, I worked for a company out of Austin, Texas, which was Full Throttle Media. And I oversaw all of their productions all over the world. We did a really cool ongoing project with Ferrari in Italy. So I was going back and forth to Italy, overseeing and directing this, this project, about a historic Ferrari boat, actually, that Enzo Ferrari had donated the engine to. That was a phenomenal thing where I was going back and forth to Italy numerous times over about a 4-year period. And that job wrapped up, which was, again, started out as a 2-month gig directing a commercial and went on for about 8 years. So it was a great gig. And now I'm developing and producing and writing through my own company, which is Lifelike Productions Inc., which has done a couple of features, run through it, and a feature doc called Rabbit Hash Center of the Universe, which is a true story about a town that elected a dog as their mayor, which I directed and produced, which was an amazing, fun film to do, and this town is incredible, and the people are incredible, and it spawned an Animal Planet special.
Oh, where is the town at? Is it in U.S.?
It's called Rabbit Hash. Yeah, it's Rabbit Hash, Kentucky. It's kind of back in the woods, across from the Ohio River, across the river from Rising Sun, Indiana, which is a big riverboat casino town, and about maybe a half hour from Cincinnati. As the crow flies, if you go straight, I mean, it takes a little longer because you go through all these winding back kind of country woods. But it's a small little town, and in 2003, initially, they had this crazy election where a dog won as mayor, and they've had 5 mayors since. And I did the original story on the original dog mayor, and then Animal Planet liked the film so much they bought a special that I did, directed and executive produced about a new dog mayor called Mayor Dog, that Ben Stein narrated, and now they've just elected another dog mayor, Mayor Wilbur, and I still have all the rights to the town, and I still own all the IP for the dog mayor story. So I'm actually working on a couple of projects now that we're looking for funding for. One is a live action feature that's kind of a throwback to what we talked about earlier, the Escape to Witch Mountains and stuff, where dog mayor and the kids of the town save the town. So that's in development right now, and but that's been one of my personal fun projects, because just the people are so amazing in that town and have opened their arms to me over the years, and been very loyal to me in terms of the rights and any media stuff that's done with them, and so that was fun.
What kind of dogs were they? Everyone's gonna be saying, Marilyn, you didn't have dogs.
Everything. The first dog was a black and tan lab, mutt rather, named Goofy. So it was Mayor Goofy. They've had black labs. They've had, you name it. It's been kind of, and it's a real election. I mean, they run as a real election, and there'll be humans in the race. But just they said it was going to be like a real election. The one with the most money wins. So people would put up dollars for votes, and it was all to raise money for charity. But on the books, it's an actual mayoral election, and the town council really runs the day-to-day stuff. But the dog mayor becomes kind of this great spokesdog or spokesperson for all these different events around the county. For women's shelters, there's a phenomenal thing where they started a thing called the Pet Protection Program, where they were finding this women's shelter out of Kentucky was finding that women would not leave abusive relationships sometimes because they had pets at home and they feared that it would be taken out on the pets. So they wouldn't leave an abusive situation. And this women's shelter in Kentucky started a thing called the Pet Protection Program, where they had a special area where the women could bring their pets with them, and they saw an increase, like sadly, 98% or whatever the number is. And so that program is starting to be adopted all over the country, and the dog mayor was sort of a spokesperson for that, shelter. So there would be dog park openings and different events and, parades and stuff like that. But yeah, it's just a quirky little piece of Americana about these great people, these great, fun, smart, brilliant people who, if you rush to judgment, come off may look like hicks or hillbillies, but man, they're some of the smartest, funniest, most charming people I've ever met.
Well, that's like really fun. So following the dog mayor, everyone's like, "Oh, Thursday, my dog is a husky." She's like, "Nudge, nudge."
Yeah,
yeah. And then so we have to talk about. Should we talk about Harry's File next? Your award-winning Harry's File screenplay?
Yeah. So I've written a ton of scripts, and there are several projects that. That I'm very passionate about right now and are in various stages of development. The first, I optioned the rights to an incredible memoir, powerful memoir. I would encourage everybody to read it. It's been called one of the best stories ever written on addiction. It's called The Los Angeles Diaries by James Brown, not the singer, not the football player. And he wrote this powerful memoir about his 40-plus, year alcoholism and heroin addiction and all the loss around him. His brother committed suicide, his sister committed suicide, all while they were trying to navigate the Hollywood system and stuff. And it's a dark, tragic, powerful piece, but written with a lot of humor and a lot of hope. And I was able to get the rights to it, and the author and I have become dear friends since. And he's just a brilliant writer. He's got about 6 or 7 novels, and I adapted it, and it won several screenplay awards. And now I'm working to get that turned into a feature. Again, it always comes down to the funding. But with my end game being to direct it, and the script and the book got a lot of notice, and through my connections at the Directors Guild, got to meet Steven Soderbergh, Academy Award-winning director and producer, and he really loved the script and the book. So he's not a producer on the film, but he's on as a consultant and advisor to me in the project. And so, he's been very helpful over the last few years in terms of, advice and trying to get it out to talent and stuff like that if we need be. So we're really pushing that now. I am, along with my company, to get that out there and get that made, because it's a really powerful piece. And in fact, I'm adapting it right now, because so much of that type of film is much more likely to get done as a series instead of film. Right now, feature, I'm actually adapting it as a pilot right now as well. Then I wrote this comedy, sort of fantasy comedy script called Harry's File. Harry's File is in the vein of It's a Wonderful Life, Heaven Can Wait, Groundhog Day. And originally it was written much more sort of broad comedy, physical comedy, and then I took it and sort of did a rewrite on it and made it much more grounded in reality, but still this fantastical situation about second chances and kind of this between heaven and earth film, and decided to submit it, and it just sort of blew up in festivals. So it won, I think it's 15 festivals to date, either placed, won first, second, third, or was an official selection. It won the Grand Jury Prize at the Los Angeles Film Invasion International Film Festival, won the third place best screenplay in the Milan Film Festival. Austin Film Festival Best Comedy. It's Austin Short Film Festival that had a screenplay as a screenplay division, and it's gone on to get recognized in, like I said, about 15 festivals now, and out of I think about 20 that I submitted it to. So that's been really nice, and that has a producer that has gotten a lot of interest in it and has come on board, and we're sort of developing that right now. So hopefully, some of these things are so cast contingent, and obviously with COVID, it's been harder to get anything out there. But those are in various stages of development right now. So I feel really good about those. And I wrote a pilot, an animated pilot called Apocalypses, which is kind of a darkly adult comic take on the apocalypse. The interesting thing about that is we started getting crazy fun, good pitches at all the networks, Netflix and Amazon and whatever. But I found that it's not the most optimal time in the world to be pitching a show about the apocalypse during the actual apocalypse. So, it's everybody's kind of like, we want to revisit this when COVID is, in the rearview mirror. And yes, and then I'm continuing to write. I just finished a script. We're actually in the rewrite phase of it now. A really fun kind of Jumanji type film with a partner, Tom Tonkel, who I'm writing a lot with now. I write a lot on my own, and then I write some with partners. I have an action thriller that I'm writing with another partner, and then I have a new series that I'm just starting to write, again with Tom, the same partner. And then I have I sort of have my list of projects that I want to work on. There's 2 that will do on my own. But yeah, so writing, particularly in the COVID era, particularly in the lockdown and all that, this year, while there hasn't been a lot of actual work, so much of my work involves travel, which has been, obviously dead, and being on set, which has been dead. I have sort of used every day to come down and act like it's a regular work day and just write like crazy. I've written 2 screenplays, 2 pilots, and a play during the lockdown. And the play, which is based on a really amazing little historical event, a little period in time between 2 big, figures in history. I'd always been fascinated with the story, and it's just this about 4-year period. I can't say much more about it because it's in development at this point, but where these 2 figures became fast friends and then bitter enemies. And I just thought it lent itself to this great musical, this great epic sort of Les Mis, Wicked sort of musical. And I wrote the treatment, and then I wrote the 2-act play. I'm not a musician. I sing, but I'm not a musician. And so you write the kind of placeholders for what you think the themes of the songs are and suggested lines and all that. And since it's gotten the attention and attachment of a Tony-nominated Broadway producer and a Tony and Grammy winning composer, so that's in active development. We're actually talking about starting to, once the songs are written and stuff, to start workshopping that. So that's been very exciting because theater is something that I kind of thought was, in my rearview mirror and may not be getting back to much, but to have that sort of come back full circle, because theater is one of my absolute loves, and have that be something come out of this idea that I've had for 8 or 9 years has really been exciting.
Wow, you just are doing so much. But I want to so we were talking about your screenplays a little bit. Like, so can we talk about little some of your interviews that you've had? Because you've had
Yeah.
spectacular interviews with kings, queens, and Prince Charles. Right now, we're hoping that he's okay. We're hoping anyone that's sick in the hospital is. We're rooting. Praying and sending out good healing thoughts to anyone's family member that can be in the hospital. Particularly since you have interviewed Prince Charles, can you maybe share that with us right now?
Yeah, I mean, I did a show. I was the supervising producer and a director on a show that was centered all around the royals. So we were going all over the world. It was for a company called My Productions, and I wasn't the creator of that. I was just hired onto that. But we were going all over Europe and all over the world, interviewing, the deposed King of Greece and Prince Andrew, Prince Charles. Um, different monarchy, and it was really kind of a look at the day-to-day in the life of royalty and monarchs, and it was awesome. I mean, there's some very surreal stuff that comes out of the shoots that I've done. Had open water experiences doing shark hunts in Bora Bora. Not shark hunts, shark shoots, shark dives. Off the coast of Bora Bora, where we were filming, all these sharks, and the boat actually left me. And I've been in, in the middle of military coups and bombs going off at airstrips. And, it's like these crazy things happen when you're doing these documentary things. Excuse me. And, and they're often very surreal things. So I remember sitting in this, we were featuring this charity that Prince Charles and Prince Andrew were very heavily involved with, children's charity. And it happened to be my birthday when we were shooting. And I think the exec producer or the show creator or something mentioned it. And so right in the middle of, we're doing the interview and we're doing this filming, and Prince Charles stops and says, and we must wish Jude Prest a happy birthday. And he leads the crowd in a round of happy birthday for me. So there's these very surreal sort of things that happen. Again, I think I mentioned earlier, it's sort of like getting to go behind the velvet rope, of where you get to kind of go where the public normally doesn't get to go when you're doing these shows and stuff. And, whether it be in a prison or whether it be in a, underground or in these, I did a show called Secret Passages where I got to go in all the, catacombs of Paris where, you've seen pictures of it, the skulls and all that stuff, and different things that you kind of get to go behind the scenes of. I worked on the Oscars for 10 years. So just being involved in that and working with, I have some, for me, incredible stories of, interactions with celebrities, getting to hang out at Jimmy Stewart's house and him making me lunch. And, there's
Jimmy
just
Stewart
all these
made
different...
you lunch. We got to ask, what did he make you? We have to ask.
He made me a sandwich and
peanut butter or bologna.
No, it was a turkey.
He made you a sandwich. That's so cute. Jimmy Stewart. It's a wonderful life. Made you a sandwich. Oh my gosh. So I'm just seeing if we get
until he made me lunch. So he was awesome. Just one of my highlights of my career, saying I got to sit down a couple of times at his house with Jimmy Stewart, Al Pacino, who again, Godfather, Dog Day Afternoon, Serpico, all these things. It's like I, got to talk with him. He had just won for Scent of a Woman. And typically, if they're nominated or have won, you can't get anywhere near them. And at the Governor's Ball after, I started as a production assistant, and then I kind of was a talent liaison where I would work with the celebrities, get them their sides, get them their script, read it through with them, make sure they were where they needed to be, make sure I greeted them so they saw a face that they recognized when they came to the stage. So we're at the Governor's Ball after, and you're all tuxedoed out and everything. And I walk over, and, Pacino is just sitting at a table by himself. And usually, like I said, he can't get around. There's a crush of people wanting to congratulate them and stuff like that. But he's just sitting with his back turned kind of to the party. And I just went over, and I had wanted to introduce myself because I had just seen him speak at Paramount a few months earlier on a film that he did called Looking for Richard, which was about making of an American version of Richard III. And I was in the middle of doing Richard III. I had started out playing Buckingham, and then they had asked me to do Richard when the show got extended. And so I just went over and I kind of put my hand on his shoulder, and he turned around with that big, like, charming Pacino smile. And I just said, listen, I don't want to interrupt your dinner. And I said, but, let me get out of the way first of what a Godfather fan, Serpico and Dog Day Afternoon, what a huge fan I am of your work. But I said, what I really want to say is I am doing Richard III, and I wanted to tell you how I'd been doing Buckingham, but now I'm going to be doing Richard III. And I just want to tell you how much your speaking on Looking for Richard was a great class for me. And he just goes, sit down. And we sat there at his table for 35, 40 minutes, and it was the best master acting class ever. But he just loves the process and actors, and he talked about how to approach the role and all this stuff for literally 40 minutes. I had to ultimately finally say, listen, I don't want to keep you anymore, and he couldn't have been more gracious, and it was the best master class in the world. And it's just one of those things I look back on, like, these great experiences that you get to have, or that I've gotten to have, and many people like me, who do the same sort of stuff that I do, get to have, in this business, as up and down as it is. You kind of look back on it. I always say I look back on a lot of the stuff I've done in my career with a lot more fondness than when you're in the middle of it. When you're left out in the middle of the ocean after doing a shark dive, it's not that fun. But, 10 years later, when you look back on it and go, wow, I did that. When I say I sat down with Charles Manson and interviewed, it's one of the most bizarre, sort of creepy things I've ever done in my career. But you go, wow, not many people get to say they sat down with Charles Manson, So I look at those things as kind of benchmarks throughout my career of going, okay, I did that. It was like, they're kind of fun stories to tell in retrospect. And, when at the time it was work and it was whatever, but sitting down with Pacino and, who just, couldn't have been more gracious and stuff. You get those with, celebrities and people you look up to and respect. And those are some of the best moments throughout my career.
You got to share a little bit. What did he say? I was going to say, she didn't ask him what he said. What did he say about acting? Give us a hint.
Well, it was just, the big takeaway, and it was just, you cannot get, when you're doing Shakespeare, and obviously Richard has these great, and Buckingham and all, they have these long monologues. You can't get hung up on the words. It's always with acting, it's about the thought behind the words, and you can't get hung up on the, da 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 da, the iambic pentameter or whatever. You still have to have it sound natural, and while getting the rhythm of the beats of the lines, you still need it to sound natural and conversational. So he really sort of focused on that, and it really kind of came down to really focusing on the intention and the thoughts behind the words, and and that's really kind of what the gist of the conversation was. But it was just this, and and he would go through lines and he would talk about specific things. It was just a phenomenal, like I said, masterclass.
Well, Jude, we have somebody here that wants to talk to you real quick.
Okay.
Hello, Jude. We want to wish you a happy birthday. Can you remind us when your birthday is? When is your birthday, Jude?
Yes, it's January 19th.
Aha. So yeah. Well, that was my fake fox Prince Charles with a female version to that.
Very exciting.
That someone would be so kind to even like someone that's that has like he's a king of London and like generational.
Yeah.
So it sounds like they're nice. So, it sounds like some people's nice. People are like, oh, what about Charles Manson? What about him? Any feedback on that you want to share with our audience?
Yeah,
Nice.
Charles Manson's the one I get asked about the most probably. And it's just fun. It's, my favorite story for that is that when you go to the prison, and we'd set it up with the prison, but Manson did not know whether we were coming or not, and did not know we were coming. It was, they wouldn't let him know until kind of right before the interview. And they said, it's his decision. If he wants to do it, he can. If he doesn't, he doesn't. And at the time, the Son of Sam law was in effect. So prisoners could not profit from doing any kind of media or interviews or anything like that. They couldn't get recognition for crimes they committed, basically. So we weren't even allowed to video it. We were allowed to record it. And then it could play over an image or something like that. So there's an interesting thing. It was Corcoran Prison up near I actually interviewed almost many of the Manson family, Leslie Houghton and Leslie Van Houten and Patricia Krenwinkel. And I think Tex Watson was the only one who didn't want to be interviewed for it out of the core Manson family, but all in their respective prisons. But at Corcoran Prison, where Manson was at the California-Oregon border, and the warden or the rep, comes and sits in the car, and it's about a quarter of a mile to go to the special housing unit, shoe housing unit, where at the time Sirhan was also in a cell there. And it's 50, what they call 50 of the 50 worst criminals in history, and so
was that a little scary or
you get
intimidating, or just like, oh,
it's freaky. I had done a lot of prison shoots and stuff with different I'll never forget one I was doing in for a big show I did on tattooing and piercing and body mod all over the world. Spent 2 weeks with Aboriginal tribes and Maori warriors in New Zealand. I was doing this prison in America, and it was all about prison tattooing. And the guard kind of walks me to this outdoor courtyard, big fenced-in courtyard, and he comes in the middle of it, and there's 20 or 30. Matter of fact, I do a montage at the beginning of that segment of the show where, I asked each one of them what they were in for, and it's, murder, 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 arson, murder, bombing, murder. And, they were gracious and talked to me, and I think, really talked a lot about the subject and the art. The prison tattooing art is beautiful. I mean, some of the artwork is beautiful and very detailed, but I'm standing there, and the guard apparently just decided to leave. And suddenly I look around, and I'm in this, enclosed pen with, 20 convicted killers and stuff. So if they wanted to take me hostage and things like that, there's not much I could have done at that point. Luckily that didn't happen. But with Manson, the prison rep got in the car with us. You have to go about I don't know, it felt like maybe a quarter of a mile to this shoe housing unit. And we drive up, and about halfway they stop the car, and it's still one of my favorite lines. Not at the time, but now looking back on it, it's still one of my favorite lines I've ever been told on any shoot. And it's, he kind of leans back on the car, and it's me, my camera guy, my audio guy, and we were able to shoot exteriors in prison, so we had our camera guy with us. But the rep leans back and he goes, "Okay, I just have to give you this speech. California does not negotiate for hostages. If something happens in there, we'll do our best to get you out, but we do not negotiate for hostages." So that's what you're about to drive into when you go into this shoe housing unit. And that's the speech you get, So it's not the most comforting welcome in the world, but they said, he doesn't know you're coming. Once we get you in there and get you suited up and everything, they will we'll ask him if he wants to be interviewed. It'll be totally his choice. And so we got in, and they put you in full Kevlar, full head to toe riot gear, basically. And I'm like, I wonder why that is, you're in a prison, obviously, said, well, these are 50 of the 50 worst criminals in history, and they just have a lot of time to think of ways to hurt people. And he told us, stories about how they can make a shank out of a plastic milk carton and let it harden over months, and it's, they'll sharpen it to where it's a knife, it's a blade. And so they put you in riot gear. They also say, I had 2 guards around me. I'm walked into this room. Manson agreed to the interview. They walk me into this room. I have 2 guards standing next to me, and then they put Manson at this table, and his feet and his hands are chained to the table, and he has 2 guards around him. And I had asked them later why they needed guards around me, and they said, well, it's really to protect Charles Manson as much as you, that you could be somebody going in there to get revenge or be a mark. Like if you're the guy that killed Charles Manson in prison, you're like, if you're some crazy person seeking publicity that way, so it's in there to protect them as much as it was me.
Well, we're going to have to go to